Hi, everyone. Welcome to your latest Carson's Take 5. Ryan and Sonu here. Sonu, I don't know if Jerome Powell and President Trump are going to share any cookies these holidays, holiday cards, Christmas cards. Might not be. We're going to talk about it this week in the Take 5. Can President Trump fire Jerome Powell? First things first, I heard he couldn't. You heard maybe he can't. Can you even fire Jerome Powell? He's the head of the Fed until May of next year, last I heard. How's that work?
Look, Trump just actually, there's an important case going through the courts right now. I don't know where it stands exactly, but Trump just fired 2 Democratic members of the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC.
Okay.
And if the Supreme Court basically comes out and says, okay, you're fine with that, and they overturn what needs to be overturned, precedent, things like that, let's not get into legal argument here. And honestly, I'm not, I don't know.
No.
But from what I've heard is that if that goes through, he can fire him, but for cause. Now, this is the president who put, reciprocal tariffs, 145% tariffs on China, even 40% on, places like Vietnam, and 25% tariffs on Canada, Mexico. I know it's suspended for now, for a while, paused, based on an economic emergency, right? And you think about, what's the economic emergency? We were at 4.1% unemployment rate. Last year and the previous year, we grow at 3% GDP growth. However you think the composition of that was, I don't know if you classify where we were before all this as an economic emergency, but that's what Trump did. So could he fire him for cause? I'm sure he could come up with a cause, and I think he could fire him. But I think the big question is, what happens next? Even if he does fire him, he wants to fire him because he's unhappy with the fact that Powell's not inclined to reduce interest rates, because you think, tariffs may cause inflation. Yes, it could be a temporary bump up in inflation. That's what we expect. But Powell's also worried. Last week, he was at the the Economic Club of Chicago,
right,
and talking about how, there is a possibility that tariffs could lead to persistently higher inflation if there's supply shocks and things like that. Suddenly, you think about a pencil, right? You get the wood comes from Oregon, the graphite comes from Sri Lanka, it's manufactured in China, and then it's shipped over here. If something breaks down, maybe the pencils don't come to your local Target, right? That's your supply shock, right? Now, maybe we could live without pencils, but what about other things? What about toasters or whatever, microwaves, fridges, things like that, right? And I think that's why Powell's worried that, maybe there is a possibility that we could see persistently higher inflation, which means what? They have to keep rates high. And Trump doesn't like that.
Yeah, listen, Jerome Powell's, he's got 13 more months on the job in all likelihood, unless he gets fired. I don't think Trump's going to fire him, but, anything's possible. He doesn't want to have egg on his face. He doesn't want inflation to come soaring back, right? This is his legacy. He's got 13 months to work on his legacy. So you have to think, these are some alpha males going at it, right? This is how they're thinking and how Jerome Powell is thinking. He's very dapper and very calm and deliberate when he speaks. But let's be honest, this is his legacy out there. So that's what this is so difficult.
Because by the way, his favorite predecessor at the Fed, guess who that was? Paul Volcker.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Paul Volcker kind of broke the inflations back in the early 80s by hiking rates way more than anybody expected. It caused a double dip recession, caused a bear market. Now, it did break inflations back, but could you imagine the pain?
It caused a lot of pain.
A lot of people remember those. We were very young then, but we read about it. But if that were to happen again to break the back, oh my goodness, it would be interesting. Markets are very volatile. We know that. But on Monday, just going to quote unquote, Trump called Powell a total loser in a Truth Social post. It's kind of hard to say.
Powell was probably not at the White House Easter egg roll, I imagine.
He was dressed as Easter Bunny. He hit President Trump back of the head, and I'm teasing. But so when you see that, the honest answer is all this uncertainty, all this aggression that's out there. Then you see something like that, wherever you side with it. Market didn't like that. Now, it's been volatile, but that was on Monday. So Sonu, let's talk about rates for a little bit. Listen, President Trump has said they want lower rates. We've seen actually higher rates. You could argue maybe it's because of the tariffs we're actually getting these higher rates. Actually, will Powell not cut then coming up in May and June because of rates, or how do you square this circle?
Let's see. Before all this happened, we were on a track where inflation's coming out really low.
Exactly. Just do nothing. We'd be having some cuts right now, is what you're saying, right?
Inflation is going to surprise to the downside. In fact, we'd probably be putting a 50% probability of a cut in May in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And we'd be talking about, and at the same time, the unemployment, there's some, the unemployment rate is low, but hiring is weak. So you would think before all this happened, the Fed is biased towards protecting the labor market. But because inflation's also was coming down, they'd be like, okay, maybe we can cut, we can entertain a cut. If not May, definitely by June. Right now, I think the probability of a cut in May, unless things go to
Right.
get really bad over the next 2 weeks, we're not getting a cut. Plain and simple.
Okay.
No cuts in May. June, I think I think the market expects a cut. I would say it's 50-50, right? What if we get an inflation number and suddenly the price of commodities, excluding food and energy, suddenly spiked up because of tariffs? And even if it doesn't, everyone's expecting that. Consumer
Right.
expectations of inflation have gone
Yeah.
up. I am not so sure the Fed is ready to cut in June. And by then, let's just say the president in the White House is going to be really upset. You think he's upset now? Wait till May and June comes, and if the Fed doesn't cut, yeah, we may have more fireworks on July 4th than we expect.
Yeah, I know President Trump also called him Mr. Too Late due to some of his past disagreements, if you will, with Fed policy before. But we've kind of hit the end of the road. There's a lot of uncertainty out there. That is the key word this year, uncertainty. Now, listen, we don't like to invest based on hope, but if you can get a better trade deal, if you can get some type of trade deals, just some concrete trade deals to come out there, we know the market can pop. I mean, this beach ball is very far under the water. Are we going to go into a recession? Listen, that's still not our base case, but the odds of recession are so much higher than they were this time just a couple of months ago. Good news, though, we have not seen any spikes in initial jobless claims. The labor market is weakening, is slowing. Yes, but still wages are still pretty solid, still growing faster than inflation. So there really are some positives out there in a sea of negativity and a sea of uncertainty. And the latest is, will the president fire the guy in charge of the central bank? It's out there. We still don't think it's going to happen, but we're watching that one closely. So add that to your list of worries in the evening. With all that, everybody, this is your latest Carson's Take 5. Who knows what we're going to talk about next week? I didn't think I'd ever talk about this one, but we did. We'll see everybody next week. Take care. Thank you.